What's going on, guys? Nate here. I know it's been a while since I put out a video, so gonna be a different sort of topic today. Um, Today I'm gonna be talking about my UFO experience. So this happened back. It was like either 7th or 8th grade. This was a while ago, probably like 10, 11, 12 years ago. I mean, I'm 24, almost 25 now, so this is a while ago. It was in the summer. I was outside in the backyard, bouncing on the trampoline with my little brother and my cousin. And clear day, just clearest day you could possibly have, not a single cloud in the sky. And this was a daytime sighting, broad daylight. So I'm just looking up at the sky, and all of a sudden I see this circular donut shaped object, which the size of it probably would have been, if you would put your thumb up to the sky, that's about how big it would be. It would be the tip of your thumb. And it might have been a weather balloon, but like it had that texture. It was this like white, like kind of like how, certain times of the year you can see the moon during the daytime, like how it has that like cirrus cloud, whitish gray texture. That's what it looked like. And it was like donut shaped. So there was a hole in the middle, and you could like see the sky through the middle. So like the middle was blue. So I could tell that it probably wasn't a weather balloon, because weather balloons, they don't have a hole in the middle. They're just like a solid white filled in all the way through. And this one was donut shaped. And so, I was just kind of thinking about this like a few months ago. Like back when I saw it, I didn't really think much of it, and I was raised, very religious Christian household, so I didn't really, think much of it. Like my view sort of aliens was kind of like, oh well, that can't exist. So I kind of just dismissed it, where I was like, oh well, that was probably a kite or a balloon or something else. But yeah, the last 2 or 3 years, been listening to a lot of like Joe Rogan experience, and I've left the church and everything. Don't believe in that anymore. Just Judeo-Christianity as a whole. Realize a lot of the bullshit involved with that ideology and everything. So, and then about 2 or 3 years ago, I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast, where Stephen Greer was the guest. And so I've been following him for about the last 2 years now. Super fascinating guy. I'm just gonna kind of talk about him now. I've got his app, the CE5 Contact app. And I don't know, the app, it's kind of very primitive. Like I tried using the networking feature on it to find other people that were doing CE5. I tried doing CE5 a few months ago in the summer, but it didn't work. So obviously, like people that are more experienced with like meditation and stuff, I think you're supposed to do it in like groups of people. Like it kind of makes everything just like more powerful when you do it in a group setting, and that's what the app is for. People form their own groups all over the world and go out into like the middle of the desert or the middle of the mountains and meditate. And so yeah, just I'm gonna be putting the link to my Discord at the end. If you if you're in the UFO community just in general, or if you follow Stephen Greer, you know, you're subscribed to him on YouTube and whatever, just like I am, and you have that app, go and join my Discord, because I'm looking for more people in the community that are involved. So yeah. So I gotta go to work in a few minutes here, so, but I will be making a part 2, because when I was watching the History Channel like a few years ago, one of the sightings they had when the astronauts were on the ISS, they had a mass sighting where there's like a fleet of UFOs, and the shape of it looked exactly like the UFO that I saw 12 years ago. So I'm gonna be screen recording the footage of that and kind of doing a breakdown, pausing it and showing everything and kind of making the comparisons and everything. So that will be in part 2. I'll see you guys over in part 2. Have a great day. Welcome back, guys. Here is part 2 as promised. I'm going to be picking up where we left off. My UFO story part 2. So, I've got the video pulled up here from NASA Unexplained Files. I screen recorded it this morning.
Ability I can't rule out.
The STS-48 sighting remains unresolved. February 25th, 1996. Columbia orbits 200 miles above the Earth's surface.
All right, guys, this is it. The STS-75 from February 1996. I'm just going to let the video play through one time with no commentary. Then I'm going to go back and play it again and pause at certain spots, and I'm going to just point a couple things out.
Ability I can't rule out.
The STS-48 sighting remains unresolved. February 25th, 1996. Columbia orbits 200 miles above the Earth's surface, preparing one of the most extraordinary experiments in NASA's history. The deployment of a satellite attached to a 12-mile-long cable. Franklin Chain Diaz, joint record holder for the most launches in NASA history, is the mission specialist on board.
The tether experiment was a very interesting experiment in electrodynamics, essentially creating a cosmic-sized generator.
The crew hoped to extend the tether through the Earth's magnetic field, generating electricity. As the tether deploys, the astronauts detect a current. Then suddenly, the cable breaks. The tether, nearly as long as Manhattan, now threatens the shuttle and her crew.
We didn't want to get the shuttle tangled up with this tether in the next orbit. So it was important for us to do a maneuver and get out of there.
The shuttle crew avoids disaster. watching multi-million-dollar hardware float off into the void.
All they could do was continue to film it, and that's what they did. They zoomed in, they zoomed out, and this is the footage that became the STS-75 incident.
You guys getting the image? We see a long line, a couple of star-like things, and a lot of things swimming in the foreground.
The camera captures a swarm of objects flying around the giant tether. Photo analyst Mark D'Antonio is fascinated by the footage.
These large objects that appear to be floating behind the tether, and because they're sharply outlined, they appear to be some type of intelligently constructed vehicle.
The objects' apparent size was just as remarkable as their sheer numbers.
The tether is miles and miles away, and it's 12 miles long, and these objects appear to be themselves miles across. And this is what excited the UFO community so much. This was their smoking gun.
But D'Antonio believes that the footage isn't what it appears to be. This experiment demonstrates what he thinks happened.
What I've done is I've cut this piece of material to simulate the tether seen in the STS-75 footage. It's very reflective, just like the real tether was.
D'Antonio positions the tether away from the camera. Then, he hangs some small particles in front of it and starts filming.
The particles are very brightly lit, and they're also out of focus. When they're out of focus, they look very large.
Video footage captures the optical illusion. Small objects in the foreground appear to pass behind the distant, bright tether.
So this shows that the STS-75 incident, which caused a massive uproar, was nothing more than a video illusion.
I do not know what that thing was, and I don't know what it is today. Unidentified and unknown.
December 1st, 1996. Shuttle mission STS-80.
Ability I can't
All right,
rule
guys,
out.
let's go back and
The
watch this again.
STS-48 sighting
Take a closer
remains
look.
unresolved.
STS Mission 75, Space Shuttle.
February 25th, 1996.
February 25th, 1996. Just like 9 or 10 months before I was born.
Columbia orbits 200 miles above the Earth's surface, preparing one of the
Columbia.
most extraordinary experiments
That's
in
the one that
NASA's
burned
history.
up going back into the atmosphere.
The deployment of a satellite attached to a 12-mile-long cable. Franklin Chain Diaz, joint record holder for the most launches in NASA history, is the mission specialist on board.
The tether experiment was a very interesting experiment in electrodynamics, essentially creating a cosmic-sized generator.
The crew hoped to extend the tether through the Earth's magnetic field, generating electricity. As the tether deploys, the astronauts detect a current. Then suddenly, the cable breaks. The tether, nearly as long as Manhattan, now threatens the shuttle and her crew.
We didn't want to get the shuttle tangled up with this tether in the next orbit. So it was important for us to do a maneuver and get out of there.
The shuttle crew avoids disaster, watching multi-million-dollar hardware float off into the void.
All they could do was continue to film it, and that's what they did. They zoomed in, they zoomed out, and this is the footage that became the STS-75 incident.
You guys getting the image?
Oh, nothing new here. Just another experiment by the U.S. government gone wrong. Probably some black unacknowledged program trying to have a tether 12 miles long, trying to generate electricity through the Earth's magnetic field. What a great idea. Not. And of course the tether breaks.
We see a long line, a couple of star-like things, and a lot of things swimming in the foreground.
The camera captures a swarm of objects flying around the giant tether. Photo analyst Mark D'Antonio is fascinated by the footage.
These large objects that appear to be floating behind the tether, and because they're sharply outlined, they appear to be some type of intelligently constructed vehicle.
But D'Antonio believes that the footage isn't.
And this is what excited the UFO community.
The camera captures a swarm of objects flying around the giant tether. Photo analyst Mark D'Antonio is fascinated by the footage.
These large objects that appear to be floating behind the tether, and because they're sharply outlined, they appear to be some type of intelligently constructed vehicle.
The objects' apparent size was just as remarkable as their sheer numbers.
The tether is miles and miles away, and it's 12 miles long, and these objects appear to be themselves miles across.
Man, that's like the mothership from Independence Day, except there's a whole fleet of them. So, if this is what I saw, which, I mean, these look exactly like what I saw, you know, donut shaped. You can tell there's a hole in the middle, like where you can see space in the background, and then just the ring is filled in.
Was continued.
You guys getting the image? We see a long...
Yeah, like all of these are donut shaped. That's pretty much exactly what I saw that day 12, 13 years
ago. A couple of star-like things and a lot of things swimming in the foreground.
The camera captures a swarm of objects flying around the giant tether. Photo analyst Mark D'Antonio is fascinated by the footage.
These large objects that appear to be floating behind the tether, and because they're sharply outlined, they appear to be some type of intelligently constructed vehicle.
The objects' apparent size was just as remarkable as their sheer numbers.
The tether is miles and miles away, and it's 12 miles long, and these objects appear to be themselves miles across. And this is what excited the UFO community so much. This was their smoking gun.
But D'Antonio believes that the footage isn't what it appears. The camera captures a swarm of objects flying around the giant tether. Photo analyst Mark D'Antonio is fascinated by the footage.
These large objects that appear to be floating behind the tether, and because they're sharply outlined, they appear to be some type of intelligently constructed vehicle.
So one thing I forgot to leave out in part one when I was describing what the donut-shaped UFO in the sky was that I saw, it wasn't just a donut shaped. It kind of had like a little cutout, like a piece missing, like right here also. And that's exactly what these ones look like. There's another view of it
The object's
coming up here in a
apparent
second.
size was just as remarkable as their sheer numbers.
The tether is miles and miles away, and it's 12 miles long, and these objects appear to be themselves miles across.
Yeah, like right here, how you can see it's not filled in all the way. There's like a little gap missing. And that's exactly how the one looked that I saw in the sky. So yeah, you know, it's crazy to think about. Like, had to imagine it must have been like really high up, like almost in low Earth orbit, like at the altitude where the ISS orbits and everything, because it was only like the size of the tip of my thumb. If you'd held your thumb up to the sky, your thumb would completely block it out. So it was pretty far off in the distance. Not too far, but far enough. So it had to have been almost like in low Earth orbit, because you know how the moon looks, and that's 200,000 miles away. So, and that has the same texture as that whitish gray like cloud texture, and that's the color of the UFO I saw. So, you know, crazy if this is the same like race of, if it's like the same race of aliens that all developed this this is the type of craft that they have. It's specific to the planet that they're coming from. So, yeah, crazy to think that what the astronauts saw 25 years ago, and then I happened to see the same thing, you know, orbiting in low Earth orbit on that summer day 12, 13 years ago. Just crazy to think.
Cross.
There it is,
This
the
is
cutout on the
what
bottom. That's
excited
exactly
the
what it
UFO
looked
community
like.
so much. This was their smoking gun.
But D'Antonio believes that the footage isn't what it appears to be. This experiment demonstrates what he thinks happened.
What I've done is I've cut this piece of material to simulate the tether seen in the STS-75 footage. It's very reflective, just like the real tether was.
D'Antonio positions the tether away from the camera. Then, he hangs some small particles in front of it and starts filming.
The particles are very brightly lit, and they're also out of focus. When they're out of focus, they look very large.
Video footage captures the optical illusion.
Oh boy, here we go. Yeah, just another one of academia in this anti-UFO skeptic community. Neil deGrasse Tyson and all the rest of them, you know, the number one enemies of us in the UFO community. Just nonsense, trying to debunk it. Like, what is he doing here?
Small
He's floating
objects in the foreground appear to pass behind the
flint
distant
gravel
bright
pieces
tether.
from like a river.
So this shows that the STS-75
in
incident,
front of that, like
which
that's
caused a
like you can
massive
somehow
uproar,
debunk it that
was
way. The
nothing more-
astronaut even said that they were seeing stuff. So
The tether,
whatever.
$1 million
Like here, I
hardware
can play it
float
here in a
off
sec.
into the void.
All they could do was continue to film it, and that's what they did.
You guys getting the image? We see a long line, a couple of star-like things, and a lot of things swimming in the foreground.
That's what he just said. He said, "You guys getting the image? We see a long line and a couple of star-like things swimming in the foreground." So whatever, you can't debunk that, man. Whatever.
The cat's filming.
The particles are very brightly lit. The tether was.
This experiment demonstrates what he thinks
Alright, I'm just
happened.
gonna let the rest of this
What
play,
I've
and then
done is I've cut this piece of material
I'll start
to
talking
simulate
again.
the tether seen in the STS-75 footage. It's very reflective, just like the real tether was.
D'Antonio positions the tether away from the camera. Then, he hangs some small particles in front of it and starts filming.
The particles are very brightly lit, and they're also out of focus. When they're out of focus, they look very large.
Video footage captures the optical illusion. Small objects in the foreground appear to pass behind the distant, bright tether.
So this shows that the STS-75 incident, which caused a massive uproar, was nothing more than a video illusion.
I do not know what that thing was, and I don't know what it is today. Unidentified and unknown.
December 1st, 1996. Shuttle mission STS-80.
Alright guys, I think you get the point. Just one point I kind of want to make real quick. Like, talking to you guys in the UFO community and everything. Like, especially, like, as pertaining to what Dr. Stephen Greer preaches and everything, and what a lot of other people that kind of have his view on it and what I'm about to explain, which I believe too. Like, if aliens were a threat, like, we would already be primordial ooze right now. Like, our civilization would be wiped out. I mean, you guys, just all the fear mongering and stuff, like Third Phase of Moon, I used to watch that YouTube channel all the time. Like, back when YouTube first, like, my first phone I had back, like, when I was a freshman, so this would have been like a few years after I saw this. Like, I was listening to a YouTube video, just some crackpot spazzing off about how there's a soul harvesting machine on the other side of the moon that's controlled by aliens, and aliens making deals with the government to trade humans into slavery for experimentation for technology. I mean, come on. That's such a load of bullshit. Like, honestly. Like, the guy was going off like, there's a soul harvesting machine on the moon. Like, oh my goodness. Like, you know, lizard people and everything. Like, my God. Oh well, you're always gonna have those people. But, yeah. I mean, like, the way I see it, like, I mean, we're all pretty much, like, nothing lasts forever. Like, anyone that's into astronomy, like, knows that eventually in a billion years the sun's gonna die from the heat death, unless Elon builds his bases on, like, the moons of Saturn and Jupiter and Mars, so we can go out to, like, the more habitable zones after the sun expands into its red giant stage. And then obviously there's the proton decay theory. The universe is eventually going to have its heat death. So, and then also the big rip theory. So one of those three things are going to be the undoing of us. I mean, like, that's just what scientists believe. Okay, I'm not saying I necessarily believe that, but that's the main agreed upon term. The main agreed upon consensus of anyone in the astronomy field throughout the world. So, obviously, what Dr. Greer is saying about these UFOs, I mean, there's so much evidence. You can't be a UFO denier. I don't know how you can be a UFO denier if you live in a developed country and you have an access to the internet. I mean, there's so many credible sightings from military and airline pilots. I mean, this stuff goes all the way back through history, thousands of years, from the Vedic and Sanskrit scripts in India, the Vimanas, all the old pictures of like the thing flying in the sky. That was like the painting of Mary holding Jesus when he was born, and all the Native American tribes that say they don't view UFOs as a threat. And they don't even view it as paranormal. They just view it as normal. I mean, that there's just too much evidence out there to deny UFOs. So yeah, obviously a UFO, I mean, they're basically gods compared to us. Just how the technology we would have if you gave a cell phone to Thomas Jefferson or whatever, and went back to the 1700s, you would be hung for being a heretic. I mean, if you even took 1% of the Navy's ships and 1% of our military now, and went back to the 1700s, you could wipe out the planet because of how technologically advanced we are now. So the aliens is technologically advanced to us now as we would be to people in the 1700s. I mean, so back to what I was saying, there's no sense being scared of them because there is zero instance of anyone dying from a UFO. Literally zero. The only thing that they've done is jam radars and shut down nuclear missiles from Stephen Greer and Jacques Vallée, Lou Elizondo, and a bunch of others in the UFO community. They, we all have these stories from the military and the U.S. military and the Cold War and the Soviets too, going back to, the 50s and everything. If they can visit from other star systems, obviously they're using a technology that is from a level of physics that we have not discovered yet and could give us a whole new civilization. I mean, it makes the best stuff we have, like a nuclear reactor, look like the steam engine from the 1800s, essentially. I mean, all these nihilistic, depressed people in science and academia and stuff, and all these computer guys like Elon Musk and Ray Kurzweil thinking they can just solve all the problems of the universe if you just upload your consciousness into a Neuralink and put it into your brain and become the Borg cube from Star Wars. No, consciousness is something that I feel so few, less than 1,000 people on the planet at any one given point in time understand. Very few people I feel understand like Dr. Greer says, like, you know, anyone that's into meditation or into spirituality and Sanskrit, like all the Eastern religions, like it's something that I think is ignored in the West, and we're finally starting to come to terms that there's only so much we can do with math and conventional Einsteinian and Newtonian physics. Like, there's more to the universe than meets the eye. So yeah, I mean, hey, maybe I'm just some crazy guy, but you gotta hope there's something more out there than, you know, just the universe dying of a heat death and being depressed and nihilistic, like all these scientists. And like many of these like Nobel Award winning scientists and everything, like a lot of them are so depressed they end up committing suicide. And then you take someone else that, you know, certain people across the planet that, you know, don't have money or anything, but they're just known for being super happy people, like people that are very deep into spirituality and everything. So obviously maybe some people understand consciousness more, and there's more to life out there than what the elite power level in academia would want us to believe. It's almost like what Alex Jones said in the Joe Rogan podcast, and it's obviously what Dr. Greer says too. You know, Majestic 12, the black projects run by all the power elites from, you know, dating back to the robber baron eras, the Carnegies and the JP Morgans and all that, you know. So it's almost like they don't want us to know what's out there, and they want to keep everyone depressed and sad and nihilistic, and everyone angry against each other on the planet, instead of us becoming like a type 1 civilization and transcending to the next level. So I don't know, that's how I feel about it, guys. Just trying to reach out to more people in the UFO community, trying to network and everything. So yeah, that's about all I have to say. I hope to be making more videos like these and doing more stuff on my channel soon. So have a great day, guys. Get on with your lives. Keep doing CE5, going out to the desert, doing your thing. You know, shout out to Jimmy Church Radio, Fade to Black. Dr. Stephen Greer, you know, Joe Rogan, you know, all those guys, everyone in the UFO community. All right, guys. I'll see you next time. That's it for now. This is Nate signing off.